Okay, thank you. My name is Anthony Graham, and as you can see, I'm a little nervous and really adorable, so just bear with me as we get through this. Gosh, I'll try to keep it short and sweet, as short and sweet as possible, somewhere between the length of Chad's attention span and really anything past 3 seconds. So, number one. All right, so Chad and I met many years and many pounds ago in junior high, and but we really didn't become friends until high school. It was through in classes, but we really bonded over music. We were in band together, and we were in choir together, and we had great aspirations of becoming great musicians. And at that time, I didn't know that music would become my passion and my profession, and I would end up teaching. And Chad had aspirations of being a great musician as well, but sadly he decided to become a drummer instead. But we never really held it against him. We still included him along with things. And I tell you, some of the best memories we had were shared going to and coming back from choir competitions and band competitions. We would sit in the back of the bus. We were telling stories, telling jokes, talking about girls, and in Chad's case, distributing Schedule II controlled substances when he accidentally became our favorite inadvertent drug dealer. Now, it really sounds, no, don't worry, it sounds much worse than it actually was. Chad was just trying to be helpful. This girl had a headache, and he went to give her some Tylenol, but he accidentally gave her some of his ADHD medication. I know. So it didn't end well, and the poor girl had to leave in an ambulance, and Chad was suspended for a couple of days, and then he got to have a conversation with the city sheriff. So needless to say, the band directors on that trip were furious. His parents weren't happy, his teachers weren't happy, but worst of all, his coaches weren't happy. And that's the scariest thing for any of you who are in high school sports, because in that instant, Chad was transformed from a baseball player to a cross-country runner. And for weeks, while the baseball team practiced, he ran back and forth from foul pole to foul pole. But the story has a positive ending. The girl was just fine, and aside from today, Chad, you were really in the best shape of your life. And his run-in with the law instilled in Chad a love of the justice system and law enforcement. So, a couple years later, we didn't know this, but he went on to major in psychology and criminal justice at Arkansas Tech University. So naturally, he was unemployed for several months after he graduated before getting a job in the AV department at his church. But Chad, I don't mean to roast you this entire time. Chad is a teddy bear. He's one of the most caring souls I know. He always has an ear to listen. Some of the best moments Chad and I have had have been sitting around the fire and swapping stories. But when I mean swapping stories, I mean listening to Chad take a split-second incident that happened years ago and turning it into a novel that rivals War and Peace. I mean, we're talking complete with characters, origin stories, and there will be sequels. Okay? Listening to a story told by Chad Pellham is like watching the movie Inception. All right? Even if you've heard this story 1 time or 10 times, you're confused, there are far too many characters, but ultimately it's really entertaining, even though you have no idea what's been happening for the past 3 hours. Okay, see, people know, all right? But Chad, ultimately this day is not about you. I haven't known Emily as long as I've known Chad, but the first time I got to know Emily was when he brought her to Arkansas. And in that instant, I mean, anybody can tell just how caring and how kind and how sweet and how confident you are, Emily. And I thought, how did Chad pull this off? And then I thought, oh my gosh, blink twice if you're in danger. Okay? But anybody who sees the two of them together, you can tell. But the most important thing was that Emily sees right through all of Chad's shenanigans. And at that point, she became part of the group. And Emily, I mean, when I saw you walking down the path here, I couldn't help but think there's nothing more beautiful than a bride on her wedding day. You're absolutely stunning. And the closest, every bride deserves the closest thing to a perfect husband. And I know Chad is very lucky, and we are all very surprised that you decided to marry him before you found one. So, love truly is blind. I don't mean to make jokes. Marriage is a beautiful thing. You exchange lives and promises and vows and compromises, all the good and all the bad. And Chad, when you leave tonight, you will leave having gained a bride with all of the qualities that one could ever hope for in a wife. And Emily, you get all these leftovers. You have a beautiful bouquet and an 8-year-old, 29-year-old. So guys, tonight I leave you with this: 707 miles. That's the distance from Dover, Arkansas to Kenosha, Wisconsin. The number 7 has long been considered significant in the Bible and science and literature. There are 7 wonders of the ancient world. There are 7 colors that make up the visible spectrum in our rainbow, and there are 7 heavenly bodies in our universe that we can see from the naked eye. In the Old Testament, you read about the seven pillars of wisdom in Proverbs. You read about the 7 gifts in Isaiah and in Genesis. After God saw that what he created was perfect and whole and complete, he rested. In the New Testament, Jesus told Peter not to forgive the wrongdoer 7 times, but 77 times. Emily, that means when Chad leaves a bottle of ranch on the counter, you have to forgive him every single time, because trust me, it will happen at least 77 times in a day. I mean, that's grace. 707 miles from Dover, Arkansas to Kenosha, Wisconsin. I remember when Chad and I were freshmen in college. We were maybe 18 or 19 years old, and Chad was going through a particularly rough breakup, and Emily, she was hideous, don't worry, okay? And when you're 18 or 19 years old, everything seems really traumatic. And I remember thinking, why is he worrying? Because God has set somebody aside for Chad that is so incredibly perfect that he has no idea. And she was there, 707 miles away, practicing her multiplication tables in 3rd grade. No, but jokes aside, in 2013, Chad packed up his bags and he moved to Kenosha, Wisconsin, 707 miles away, for a new job and a new life. And in time, he would find somebody, his perfect half, his perfect whole. And he did, and that person was Frank Bercaro. Chad, when I think about you, I think about adventures, all the adventures we've had. I think about the camping trips, the gigs we've played, the shows we've been to, and I couldn't have asked for a better friend along the way. And today, you and Emily, you two, you started a new adventure, and I know I speak for everyone when I say we are incredibly honored and blessed that you would include us on this day. The Lord has amazing and wonderful things planned for you, and I truly wish you the best. So raise your glasses, and let's celebrate the couple, to Chad and Emily.
Yeah, give him a round of applause. That was awesome. That was by far the best man speech I've ever heard. Great job, Andy.